Hello, welcome to We Don't Talk About Uno, the podcast where we talk about Lorcana, a Disney card game. Today's topic is...
Hey! What are you doing with my microphone? David, hello, I'm so sorry. Our intro was stolen from us this week. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Simeon. How are you?
I'm good. What are we talking about this week?
We are talking about the 2-year curse.
What's the 2-year curse?
Well, that's interesting. A couple of episodes ago, we talked about the 3-episode curse. So, the 2-year curse is the idea that many trading card games last for about 2 years and then they disappear, they fizzle out.
Okay, yeah. So I've played a couple of those games. Yeah, I think we saw online some excellent videos by a guy called Kodak, really entertaining. Go check out his YouTube, and he has a whole series about why some trading card games fail.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that today. And part of what we also wanted to talk about is the question from our friend John.
Yeah,
which is, what if the gameplay sucks?
Well, should we start there?
Let's start there. So I'll be honest, I've had that worry too. It's gone through my mind. Like, what if this is actually just not a fun game to play?
Yeah, okay.
But then as I thought about it, and we've had discussions about this, I realized that I thought about when I first played Magic, the Gathering.
Yes.
For me, the gameplay sucks. It was a terrible game for me. It was an awful experience, and I gave it a 1 out of 10 on Board Game Geek, which I very rarely do. Now, what's interesting is it's now a 10 out of 10 game for me. It's if not my all-time favorite game, it's up there.
Amazing. Okay.
So I think in terms of the basic mechanics of Magic, if you just play that as a game and say, look, here's a game,
okay,
I'm not sure it's that fun.
Well, yeah, and there is something that there are a lot of Magic-alike games, very similar, and they all seem to be, or many of them seem to be, there's this problem with Magic the Gathering, I'm going to try and fix it by doing this. Or Magic is a great game, except for... and then they try and solve it. And there are different ways they try and solve it, and there are different problems they're trying to solve. But that means that there's a hell of a lot of problems with a game that's extremely popular.
Yep. We've talked about other games that were actually the gameplay probably isn't that interesting in and of itself. If you try and play poker around a kitchen table, it's probably not going to be that fun.
Well, I don't know. So yes, you're totally right. But there's this whole thing that the games people enjoy and quote-unquote good games aren't necessarily the same thing. And this is, both of us have probably spent too long, and you more than me, on Board Game Geek.
Yeah.
And playing a lot of different board games and seeing board games that are absolutely beautiful designs of gameplay and mechanics that really work excellently well together, and all of the moving parts are just absolutely amazing. And then other games that you do kind of have a problem. And I think we've already talked about Magic the Gathering. The fact that it's randomized card draw of resources mixed in with the cards that actually do something is what most people seem to dislike at the start.
Yeah.
Other people say it's pay to win, which, you know what, there is an element of that in any trading card game. So, yeah, sure. And then there are other games that seem to be absolutely beautiful designs. The one that always comes to mind for me is Carcassonne, the board game, which is super simple. You're building a map tile by tile, and you put little people on the map to score points. And it's so simple. You can teach it to somebody in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And yet it's so complex when you start to actually look at the tactics. Yeah. And it's just a beautiful design. But that doesn't make it a more enjoyable game.
I think for me, what brings Magic, or trading card games, Magic being the one that I play most at the moment, to life, is outside of the gameplay.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what I mean by that. And I don't mean the time spent playing the game, but one of our other friends who also plays Magic has said he likes drafting. And one of the things he says is he loves drafting. So drafting's when you open some packs and build some decks from that, and then play them against other people who've done the same.
Yeah, so you're opening from a pool of cards you don't know, from
Yeah.
a randomized pool of cards, and you're just building a
and he loves that. And he said, but for him, it's the drafting that's the most fun part. So He says the decks basically play themselves. That's not completely true, but I can understand where he's coming from by saying that.
Yeah, no, I think that's and that's so. When I started playing Magic, that's how I got into it.
Yeah.
Was playing draft, and the drafting experience or putting the deck together really interesting. Actually, then playing, there are so many games that are. So you generally what you do is you draft for people who don't know, you draft a deck and then you play 4 or 6 games with that deck against different people who have made decks from the same sealed pool of cards, same randomized pool of cards, and some of those games in each night were just like totally one-sided, and sometimes it did just feel like rock paper scissors. Now that's. Obviously, I'm not saying it's not fun, and it is hugely skilled. It's really skilled thing to do. But for me, it was always like, I've got this amazing deck, and that was the fun bit over.
And the fun bit is part of it's opening the cards, seeing what you get. Part of the fun is then building the deck and being creative with what you get. And so there's aspects of trading card games outside of gameplay.
So circling back round to John's original question, what if the gameplay sucks? Mm-hmm. Will you still enjoy the game, even if the actual gameplay isn't great?
Yeah, I think I will, because there's the fun of opening packs, there's the fun of discovering the different characters, there's the fun of just hanging out with friends and playing the game. There's so much to trading card games outside of the actual gameplay that I think I will enjoy. If it's absolutely terrible, then no. But I don't think it's going to be because of the designers on it. So Ryan Miller has got such a history of creating different trading card games, and he knows where they've gone right and where they've gone wrong. And also his co-designer, Steve Warner.
Yep.
And one of the things that Ryan Miller says about Steve Warner is that Steve is all about looking for the areas where a game doesn't work.
Oh, okay.
Which is obviously an important role. So looking at, well, how can we make this game so that it is a good game? And so Miller says about Warner that he finds the problems and he cuts them out. He's like a surgeon. And he says he and his team have actually absolutely knocked it out of the park with Lorcana. So
I think that's a really important role in most teams. Is and it's really undervalued. That kind of like the person who isn't scared to say, that bit that you've just spent hours doing, really sorry, it's not good enough. We either need to cut it out or we need to change it beyond recognition. Yeah,
the fixer. So they find the problems, but they find the solutions to those problems.
Yeah, it's like what was in Pulp Fiction? The Wolf. Amazing.
But another thing that Ryan Miller said about the game, which I think shows how fun it's going to be, is he talks about putting together combos. So combos in trading card games can mean one of two things. It can either be 2 cards that you put together and they instantly win you the game. I don't think that's what he means by combos in this instance. It can also mean really good synergies between the cards. The cards work really well together.
2 cards that work.
And you're trying to find for yourself which cards do that. And however long you play trading card games for, at least what I've found is there are still synergies that surprise you down the line. That you find.
Synergies that really don't work and you try and make work.
It looks like it should. I want this to work.
I really want this to work. And I love when, going back to when we play Magic the Gathering, I love it when people try and make theme decks and there's just not enough of that theme. I tried to build, and now I guess there is, but I tried to build the first decks I tried to build from scratch was a Knight theme deck, and there just weren't that many good knights. This was before a lot of the sets that were themed around knights had came out, and it was just like, this is just never gonna be a good deck. So that's one way of kind of prolonging the enjoyment of a deck. Of a game.
There's so many ways in which trading card games can be engaging outside of the gameplay itself that I think and Lorcana's thought about a lot of these, and that's when we're in this episode looking at the 2-year curse, we're looking at probably more of those things outside the gameplay that actually cause these games to fail, because probably most of them are, like Lorcana, pretty solid games. I'm being a bit unfair to Magic saying that I raised it low for a lot because I didn't enjoy it, and there's solid gameplay there, but it takes a while to find out what that is.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's not for everybody, and it's also not even. Yeah, I think that most people that play the game would either recognise that there are problems with it, or there are things that some people would just not enjoy.
Yeah,
yeah.
But if you gave me if Magic the Gathering was 2 decks, and you said, here's these 2 decks, these are the rules, would I play it once or twice?
Yeah.
And that's it. The fun of it is collecting the cards and building different decks, bringing those decks to a game night, showing with your friends what comes out of the deck, showing your creativity. Yeah, it's a social thing.
Trying to show your creativity.
Trying to show your creativity.
Amazing.
Trying to show your nights and having an awkward situation.
Yeah, having an awkward. Oh no, this doesn't work at all. Never mind. Okay, so this YouTuber Kodoc has been looking at the 2-year curse for a couple of years now. He's put out a lot of different videos, and he's done this by what he calls the 7 deadly sins of trading card games. So we thought we'd have a look through. Some of these, it's too early to tell. Some of these really don't apply. However, we thought we'd have a little look down to those and others of Kodoc's videos and see what applies there.
Yep, sounds good. And we're dedicating the episode to Maleficent because it's a curse. And
it's a curse, yeah, of course.
Yeah, so.
And who knows about curses? So I think it's important to, first of all, set out what Kodoc means. He actually says that, obviously, the 2-year curse is that either a game shuts down, ends production, or at least shrinks to the point of irrelevance after roughly 2 years. And it's good for a YouTube title, probably unpacking it. A lot of these games fail for different points for different reasons.
Yeah.
But most, and also, I don't even know if it's isolated to games either. I think a lot of products or ideas, they will test it for a year. They'll have a kind of pilot year. And then, does this work? Not really sure. Let's go to business as usual. And they'll do that for another year. And that's a kind of time when most, businesses will kind of go, is this product really working for us?
So it's like a part of the research and development process can be releasing stuff.
Oh, of course,
I think Lorcana's different in that sense, because I think Ravensburger have gone all in. And that's my sense that I get.
I kind of feel, announcing something a year before it's launched, you can't really go back and go, oh, never mind, well, this didn't work.
I don't feel like they're testing the water. They will have done a lot of tests, but I don't think the release itself is one of those, or at least not the main part of the testing that they're doing.
Okay, have you played any of these, any failed trading card games?
I have, but so I watched this 7 Deadly Sins videos that you sent me before, and what really, really blew my mind is how many there are, the sheer number of them.
Well,
because I suppose you don't, because they don't catch on, you don't hear about them. But there's been, so one that I've played is Star Wars, I think Star Wars Destiny.
Yes.
I played that for a little while, but apparently there's been 6 Star Wars trading card games. That's amazing.
That's a lot of cards.
There's been Harry Potter one, Neopets. There's been one called Kaijudo. There's been a Tim Burton trading card game.
Yeah, I played Warhammer Champions recently.
Yeah.
It launched. Absolutely great game based on the Lightseekers mechanics, which is a different game that also I'm not sure whether they still make it or not. And a little disclaimer: if we mention a game and you're thinking, I still play that game with my friends all the time. Why? That's not a dead game. Great, brilliant. We're just talking about to us, to the local community where we are, for whatever reason.
And is the game still in print? That's the other thing.
Well, yeah, of course, yeah. But there are some games as well that it kind of doesn't matter whether a game is a quote unquote dead game or not if you can't find people to play it with. So I absolutely love the Final Fantasy trading card game. That's kicked all assumptions that it would just peter out, and it's still going after, I think, about 8 years, and it's still in production. And near where we live, there's a community of people who play it every week, but that's like 2 hours away, so I'm not really going to go there. And where I am, no one plays the game. I think it's important to recognise that the wider picture, the broad picture of whether a game is successful or not, kind of doesn't matter. If you're playing it with your friends, brilliant. If you're enjoying it, excellent. Carry on.
Yeah.
So, what are the what are the sins we're looking at? Give us the first sin, David.
Well, the first sin's interesting, and this isn't the first sin by Kodak. We've reordered these, but the first one we're looking at is based on a movie. And so when I saw that as a sin, I was like, "Whoa, Lorcana's! How many times can you commit that sin? That's really, really naughty of Lorcana to do that." So why does that cause trading card games to fail if they're based on a movie? So there's a couple of reasons. So they can be put together quite rushed to come out alongside the movie.
Okay.
They might have incomplete information ahead of the movie's release to put a card game together, so it might not then tie in well with the movie. And then there can be a lot of, this is what Kodak says, there can be a lot of red tape around it, so you have to get a lot of approvals from the movie developers about how this game's going to work, so you don't just have ownership of it.
Yeah.
And then on top of all that, you've got the licensing costs. So you're not just got the cost of printing the cards, you've got the licensing costs.
Yeah, it was really interesting to kind of revisit that video and have a look at it, because I kind of assumed that when a lot of these kind of big IP trading card games failed or just ceased production, it was because there was hype for a brand. Then after 2 years, there was no longer hype for that particular IP, that particular thing. So the Transformers movies came out. That was really big. The Transformers trading card game came out. People played that for a few months because there was hype around the Transformers movies. And then, well, we haven't really, that Transformers hasn't been in the collective conscious as much. So, that kind of dies down. But it's interesting to see how we analysed it and we're like, okay, that's not the only issue. There are issues around, from day one, if you're developing it from a movie, you're going to have issues.
Yep. So that's interesting because obviously Lorcana is based entirely around movies and TV series and things like that. So what is different, or what gives you hope that Lorcana will be different in this way?
I think it's all going to depend on the relationship between Ravensburger, that's making the game, and Disney, who's licensing the content.
Yeah.
If that is a good relationship, if that's something that's working and that there's open lines of dialogue and that things are getting signed off and that ideas are shared freely, then that's going to work really well.
Yeah.
There is a danger, though, that either Disney, or let's be honest, probably Disney would be the people who would get bored of the relationship. It would just, the eye of Sauron would move somewhere else in their business, and all of a sudden, Ravensburger was just left with, here's the content we can make about the things we can that we've got licensed. I think if the game's successful, though, if the game's are being played and being bought across the world, I don't see there being an issue, and it is just two companies that have to get on. This isn't a hugely complex relationship, but it is important to recognise, there's a relationship there that could, that could go cold.
The other, that's really interesting. And the other thing for me is so the issue with movies is that they're a one-time thing. They're an event. So you've got a little bit of content from a movie, and then you've got to base a game around this. And if you want the game to last, you've got to keep somehow creating new cards out of that one event. Whereas with Lorcana, there's obviously a century, 90 years of content that they can draw on already there, and a rolling release cycle for indefinitely that they can draw on. So there's not that sense of the well is never going to run dry for them in terms of content they can draw on.
And I'm quite hopeful that they've created this little world for it to exist in. So I don't think maybe I'll be proven wrong. But I don't think we're going to see, here's a big release, movie from Disney. We are going to have a set that is just that movie. Because that's something that's really quite dangerous because there are hugely successful Disney movies, and there are other Disney movies that kind of get forgotten after a few months. That they could produce a Frozen set when a Frozen type movie came out, and that would be massively successful. And then there'll be another movie that I don't know. Give me a less successful Disney movie.
Or one that I haven't. So if you compare like Luca, I think that is that.
That was I really enjoyed Luca.
Yeah.
But
compare that to Encanto.
Exactly. If they put a lot of time and effort into developing a set or a series of sets around Luca, and then people aren't that interested, and then they emphasize a movie like Encanto, which was massively successful. At that point, then you're going to have going to have issues. But I don't think that's going to. It doesn't look like that's the way they're going. It looks like that they're going to draw in characters into the Lorcana world rather than have sets based around movies.
Yeah, that makes sense. Equally, I can see that when a movie's been released, it would make perfect sense to include some characters from that movie in the latest set to coincide that. That also
Brilliant,
makes sense,
of course, yeah. I hope that they're having those conversations. I hope that we see newer characters and more, more left field movies in the sets as well. Okay, what's the next sin?
The next sin, and you can explain what this means to me, Simeon, is called unmixable attributes. So it's going in quite a different direction to being based on a movie. Unmixable attributes. Tell me what that means.
Okay, so I'll use one of the games I've played recently, which also fell foul of the 2-year curse, Warhammer Champions, and I think I've mentioned before. So you open up a pack of cards of Warhammer Champions, and they come in 4 factions. And you could open one of the best cards in the set and not care because that's not one of the factions you you particularly collect. So I think by unmixable attributes, what they mean is that when you go to build a deck or when you go to play the cards, that you can only play certain cards with certain other cards. The simplest of this is Kodok gives the example of the Austin Powers card game, which literally has good cards and evil
Heroes
cards.
and villains.
Heroes and villains.
Which Lorcana also has. So it's whether can you put those in the same deck or not.
I think it's not just can they go in the same deck, but if you had 2 hero decks, would they play well against each other? Or will the mechanics of the game kind of mean that if you do have a hero deck and a villain deck, which we don't even know if that's a thing or not yet, we know that it says hero on some cards and villain on the other ones, but we don't know whether that will be a deck building restriction yet. But yeah, that's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? That kind of, if I can't play a hero deck effectively against another hero deck, how do you even have a competition? If 16 people turn up at the game shop to play a little competition, a little weekly challenge or something, and most of those people have villain decks because those happen to be the best decks at that time. I mean, how do you even run that?
Yeah. And one of the things that Kodok said that I really liked is that part of the fun of trading card games is that you create unlikely situations, you mix unlikely characters. So I would love to go play up against the deck, and then someone brings out Mary Poppins and Darth Vader in the same deck. That would be pretty fun, wouldn't it? It's that kind of funny.
It would be funny. Well, I don't know. It depends. The line for me is if the game creators intended for that to be an open situation, or whether they intended for that to be the funny. Yeah, I play in Magic the Gathering. I play an equipment deck with this big burly shaman called Valduke, and I put loads of equipment on him. And the funny thing that I like to do is just put ridiculous. So there's crystal slippers from a fairy tale set. Let's put crystal slippers on this massive burly shaman.
Yeah. So the question is, and we don't know the answer: are the attributes in Lorcana, like the colours or the types of hero and villain, or Dreamborn and Storyborn? Can you mix those? I'm assuming you can.
I mean, I'm assuming you can mix the colours simply because there's too many colours for it not to be unmixable.
Yeah.
Because if not, they would have to make so many cards in the first set or the first couple of sets that it would just be, it would be a nightmare to actually collect enough cards of those colours.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that on a different episode. I can see a situation where, heroes or villains become things that
they work together.
They work together. Or that there are cards that say your hero cards get this bonus.
Yeah.
Or your villain cards get this bonus.
So it makes sense to put them together.
It makes sense to put them together, yeah. I mean, I think that's the best kind of synergy is when you kind of feel like you've discovered it yourself.
Yeah, or so you're not told you have to do this, but it helps you if you do.
Exactly. Yeah. It's that whole, it's not the rule of the game. And that's part of the fun, isn't it? The part of the fun is when do I kind of break this unwritten rule that these things might work together well, or when does it benefit me?
Yeah. So the next sin, Simeon, is called life decking, which for me is... I'd never heard of life decking before, and I've never played a trading card game that has life decking.
Whoa, hang on.
Oh, okay, you're going to correct me.
You have played a game that has life decking,
Which one was that?
You've played against me.
Okay.
It's Magic the Gathering. So Magic the Gathering does have a rule that if you run out of cards...
Yeah, but that's not how you keep track. No, that's not what...
Okay, but, I'll make a point, though. You've played against my wizard deck which tries to dump all of your cards in your graveyard as quickly as
I've
possible.
also managed to dump all of your cards in your graveyard.
How does that feel, David?
It was quite funny in that situation.
Oh, no, yeah. In the one where you turned my own tactic against me, okay, well done, yes. But in the... I think a lot of people...
So until very recently...
Yes.
That would break my heart. If you were making me throw away cards, I'd be like, Simeon, what are you doing?
Yeah, people hate those. So, yeah, there are cards that, especially cards that make you discard cards from your hand. People hate playing against that because they've put the cards that they like in the deck because they want to play the cards that they've put in the deck and forcing them to go, no, you've got to bin that card. Either as part of the mechanic, so live decking is where when somebody either deals damage to you, you put that many cards into your discard pile, or that there's some way that when you run out of cards,
you discard them in another. Yeah, you get rid of cards to track your life. That's the
and it is heartbreaking when you've got a deck that oh, you know what, I've got this card and that card that are really going to save this game for me. Don't worry, I'll find those cards and it'll all be okay. And then you just see both of them just get binned.
So when I read this theory, I was like, because I've got my own theory. When I read this sin, I was like, because I've got my own theory about Lorcana.
Okay.
Which is that the back of the card, so face down, the symbol on the back of the card is law. That's what I'm...
Yes.
Because we know it from a tweet, but Ryan Miller said it, I found out since. So Ryan Miller has said that the goal of the game is collecting law.
Collecting law, yeah.
Yeah, so that's on record. And I think the law is the little symbols in the bottom right, so each card has a set of... They're like
pips,
elongated diamond shapes, and that's also the symbol of the game. So my guess is that is the lore that you collect, and my guess is also that you keep track of how much you've collected with face down cards. That's my guess.
But face down cards, having to take cards that you don't know what they are, and put them outside of the game to track something, feels less bad than flip up the top 10 cards of your deck and put them in a discard pile because you're losing. And when you do that, 3 of your best cards are sat there.
That makes sense. And then, so that was my initial response, was like, but then the reason I came up with this theory was because of a couple of games Ryan Miller designed in the past. And one of them is called Kaijudo and one of them is called Duel Master. They're very similar.
Okay.
And they use face down cards as a resource. But Kodok in this video, The Sins, says that in those games, in Duel Master, that's actually a really positive way of doing it. So I was like, okay, so you can do this thing in a different way that works.
So are you aware of, I think the biggest one, one that people might know or have played is the Pokemon trading card game, where you you shuffle your deck and you put the top 6 cards, out for, as they're called, prize cards. So when you do a good thing, you get to pick up your prize card, which then that card goes into your hand. So it's like drawing an extra card. The only downside to that is that it does feel quite win more. And what I mean by win more is that when you're winning, you get rewarded. So it's difficult to balance that kind of mechanic where, I'm winning, therefore I draw more cards than the person who's losing.
Yeah.
Well, it's just going to snowball. So, there are bad things to that as well. But generally, it does feel good to, I've done the thing, I get to pick up a card, I get to pick up a prize card.
Yeah, so one other interesting game that I heard about is called WeCross. I don't know much about WeCross, but the interesting thing is
never heard of it.
Damage is tracked by face down cards in WeCross. So it's a not tracking lore. But then when you've used those cards to track your damage, those cards that track your damage can be used to pay to buy for new cards. So they have a resource in a different way. And so I wonder if lore in Lorcana will help you pay to bring out other cards. I don't know, but it's just a theory that's
it's a theory of something. It's something they could do, isn't it? That's it's interesting. Okay, I'd like to talk about our next sin.
Go on then, Simeon. What's the next sin?
So the next sin we're going to discuss is games that come with too much junk. These are games, Kodok kind of describes games that have tons of tokens or that are presented as a card game but really are a board game. This week, I went down to our game shop on Thursday to play a game which I absolutely love, but definitely has too much junk. That game.
What game is it? Yeah, tell us.
That game is the X-Wing miniatures game, which is Star Wars plastic spaceships, tiny plastic spaceships from Star Wars battling against each other.
So you literally have little plastic, like Matchbox cars, but they're spaceships.
They're spaceships, yes. And you roll dice to shoot, and you move them around on this like 3 foot by 3 foot star field, and it's super fun. Yeah, I recommend it. However, I only recommend it if you like stuff.
Okay, so it comes with lots of stuff.
Oh my goodness, does it come with lots of stuff?
Junk, yep.
It comes with so much stuff that I, out of pure annoyance for how much stuff I had to get together and track and keep a hold of, I made a list. Would you like to know all of the 15 different items you need to play X-Wing Miniatures game?
Go on then, high speed.
High speed, I took with me 6 ships. I had to take the correct size base with a little peg on for each ship so that it could fly on the base that was the correct size. I had to then have a movement dial, which each ship has a different separate movement dial, and each type of ship has its own unique one. You then need number indicators if you're flying multiples of the same ships to differentiate those. I forgot those. That's the item that I forgot that exasperated me into making this list.
If this was a YouTube video, I would be asleep in the corner at the minute.
You need pilot cards for each ship you're flying, upgrade cards for each ship. So I had 6 pilot cards, and I also had maybe 3 or 4 upgrade cards on each ship. You need movement templates. There are 11 movement templates for X-Wing, but also not just that. You've got to have your movement templates, but also you have to have a range ruler, which is a separate measurement to the movement. Oh, how do you think you keep track of damage? Do you just do a little tally? No, you need a separate deck of cards for when you take damage. You also need dice, but not just one type of dice. No, 2 different types of proprietary dice, 8-sided dice with special symbols on them. You also need a battle mat and some obstacles and so many tokens. There is a list of 12 different tokens in the manual.
This is more than when I go camping, Simeon.
So there's a game that I absolutely love, but it just has too much stuff, which meant that when I went down the game shop on Thursday, I arrived there at about 6:30. I didn't start a game because I was setting it all up till 7:15. We had one game, and then by that time it was time to pack it all down, put all of the different bits back in the box, make sure that was all packed away, and I had all of the different cards because I don't want to lose any of these cards and things.
Yeah.
Now, differentiate that to when we play Magic the Gathering and we all turn up with our 100-card deck and not a lot else, to be honest. We've got a few dice to track things. And sometimes we can fit 2 or 3 games in an evening, even though they're longer games usually. But we don't have to set anything up. Yeah,
so that's the issue with too much junk. It's the setup time. And the other side of it is the buy-in costs. So if you have a lot of stuff, then obviously you've got to buy that. Like you said, there's proprietary dice in the Star Wars game. You've got to buy those. I think that's £6 for one set of dice, and you need 2 of them and things. So it quickly adds up. Whereas if you can just buy a deck of cards, that's obviously a lot cheaper.
It's not even that. I think it's that people play card games or collectible card games because they enjoy collecting cards, not because they enjoy all of the other random stuff that comes with it. And people who get into these things do then enjoy buying fancy deck boxes to keep their
fancy playmats.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a side hobby once you're into it, isn't it?
Once you're into it. But when you're starting out, do I want to spend money on that? No, I want to spend money on more cards. I think you mentioned already Star Wars Destiny. So that was a game that had cards and also had dice that you had unique faces, so you collect the dice. And that was something that I was like, well, I don't necessarily want to collect dice. I already collect cards. I want the cool cards, not the dice. That's what put me off that game. Okay, what's the next then?
I think we'll cover this one pretty quickly because we know that Lorcana doesn't commit it.
Okay.
It's no reminder text. So that's when there's a keyword on the card, such as in Lorcana, there's the keyword evasive.
Yes.
If those keywords aren't explained on the cards, then that can affect the longevity of the game because new players need that explained on the cards so they understand the game as they start playing it.
Definitely. So that's something that in Magic the Gathering, sometimes they explain it and sometimes they don't explain it if it's a special edition of the card. And if I'm putting it in a deck, I will, and there's the two different ones I could have either from my collection, or if I'm looking online and buying a card, there's one that has a reminder text and one that doesn't. I pick the one with reminder text, even if I know what the keyword does.
Yeah.
Simply because I might lend that deck to someone.
Yeah.
I might be playing it with my kids, and for them to just be able to read, oh, that's what that means.
Yeah.
It's such a
Or your
better
opponents
experience.
can understand the card better as well when you're playing. It's a better play experience
definitely,
for everybody.
yeah. The sixth sin we've got here is set rotation, which some games, or I'd say most of the trading card games that last a long time, have rotation, whereby that in most competitions you can only play cards that have been printed in the last 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. And when I first got into trading card games, that to me was a bit weird. Why would I want... That's just a cash grab, right?
Yeah.
You're just like, yep, yes, it is. I mean, maybe it is.
No, it's more than that, but I think that's... In Kodok's video, he's like, there's this reason, and it's a cash grab, and this reason, and it's a cash grab, which is pretty funny.
So I do think that if games that don't, or not even games, or even formats, I would say, formats of the game, i.e. ways of playing the card game, that doesn't rotate, will, over time... there will be established norms of which are the most powerful cards. There'll be established meta of which decks tend to play well against the other decks at the highest level of the game. And also there's generally power creep, that when you print something ridiculously powerful, some card that's probably too good for the game, there's not a lot you can do. You either have to ban that card, or everybody just has to get a copy if they want to play at the tournament level, or not even if they want to play at the tournament level, if they want to play the best version of that deck. Because I'd never play like I'm not good enough to play in Worlds at any game, but I still want to play a good version of the deck that I'm playing. And that can be really difficult. That there will be cards that unless they're reprinted again. That do just either command a silly high price, or just become staples of the game, that everybody has one.
So set rotation allows at some point for us to move on from those cards and to come into it. Yeah.
And also it stops us from having to always be printing better and better and better cards for people to buy better and better cards, because you kind of print a set, and then you print a slightly more powerful set, and then the next set, well, the slightly more powerful set's getting rotated out of the game, so we can go back to printing slightly less powerful cards that are still fun.
Mm-hmm. So there's lots of good reasons for set rotation.
Yes.
But the sin is having set rotation. And the reason for that is because like we're talking about the 2-year curse, most sets last 2 years.
So I think the way...
And it kills... What he's saying is it kills the game off, because the game's only been around 2 years, and then suddenly...
Yeah.
People who were really into the first set and got the first set, my set is not legal anymore. And that's most people. The buy-in curve of the game is that there'll be more people that buy the first set.
Yeah, I think the sin isn't rotating. I think the sin is rotating too quickly. I think that's the issue. Is all of a sudden just bringing in. Well, we've got to rotate
just
to sell
because
more
every
cards. Every other game does this.
Yeah.
Unless you have a problem with power creep of the cards getting more and more powerful, or unless you've printed things that really you'd wish weren't in the game. There's no reason to rotate out other sets, are there?
Yeah, but also it keeps it interesting for deck building, doesn't it, as well? Because you've got a defined period of time where you can choose cards from, and each time it rotates forwards. With Magic, it rotates every new set. Is a new rotation or not?
No. So in Magic, it rotates once a year for the cards from the previous 2 years. So there's always the previous years to go back on, and then the
upcoming year.
The upcoming year as well, you start getting more cards. So in September, when it rotates, you'll have usually around 5 sets to work with, and then that'll creep up to around 8 to 10 by the following September, and then the older sets drop off at that point.
I can see how that makes the game interesting. I don't know where Lorcana's going to go with this. I'm not sure it's it's going to be the reason it fails. If it fails, it won't be because of it does this or not. Does this.
Yeah, I think that games that have a healthy collector market as well as a gaming market, rotation is less important because Pokemon rotates, and yet the most desirable cards aren't the new cards, are they? They're the collector's pieces, because it's how people, most people enjoy the game as a collector's hobby, and with the addition of there's a game that goes alongside that, not as I just want to play the game. It doesn't matter where the cards are.
Yeah. So final sin.
Yes.
Non-standard card sizes. Again, I don't think it's one that we need to discuss in depth because Lorcana has a standard card size.
They've printed cards. It's the same size as every other game.
So some games fail because they know that they need a unique selling point. They need something that makes them stand out. So they choose, we'll choose a different card size to everyone else. But then that incurs extra cost, but not just for them, for their players, because like card sleeves and deck boxes are all designed around a particular size. So it's an easy way to go with your game.
So, those are the 7 deadly sins that Kodok explains over a series of videos. And I think it's really interesting to kind of have a look and go, okay, where could the pitfalls be for Lorcana? However, I think that Kodok committed one of the 7 deadly sins of YouTubers, which is announcing the end of your series before you've started it, or in the very first episode, because he now has a series called Errata Text where he goes over other things which were missed out of this list.
I missed these, Simeon. Go on then.
So,
any of them relevant to Lorcana, I guess.
A few of them are, yes.
Yeah.
So, the Errata, if you enjoy the series, I'd encourage you to go watch one of these videos. And if you enjoy the series, it's continuing, only it's now got a different name because he called it 7 Deadly Sins and had 7 videos and then was like, oh, damn, I want to keep making these. So, he's talked about other different things. One thing that I think is really interesting that I've seen asked a few times in a few different places, and we were asked it on Twitter as well. Kodok talks about the rarity iceberg, which means how rare cards are and how rare the cards that are often played are. And at the moment, there's nothing on the cards that have been printed so far that suggests what rarity those cards are.
I'm going to jump ahead to the end of the episodes because we got that question from Arts and Magic.
You actually are. Thank you so much. Because
how can we determine the rarity of a card from the information that we have? So you're saying that there's not any information. I'm going to be controversial and say there might be.
There might be. What might
so
be?
I think so. The law what I'm calling the law symbols on the bottom right.
Yes.
And initially, some people were like, "Oh, that's about the rarity," but then people were like, "That's about the gameplay."
I think that's about the gameplay. I don't. Think that's
how about both? How about both? So, more of those symbols, more powerful card, more rare.
Okay.
Have I just committed the rarity iceberg sin?
That is the rarity iceberg sin, is that? Well, I mean, there's Kodok goes into a lot about this, and he obviously understands this more than I do. However, I think that there is an issue with games where the most popular cards are all printed at super rare.
So they're hard to get hold of.
Because they're hard to get hold of, which drives up the cost of building a deck and means that when you just happen to open cards and find your favourite characters there, if they're common, they might not be very good. I think that it's better to have games which have where the gameplay encourages playing cards of all different rarities, and that the power level of each card is something that isn't necessarily connected to how rare they are.
It often is, isn't it? But it's not always.
I think the example, and we've talked about this in a previous episode, the example that I like to give is that special land cards, which are your basic resource in Magic the Gathering, the special land cards are printed at a rare in every set. So the ones that you really want to use are going to cost you money, and that drives up the cost of an average Magic the Gathering deck in comparison to where in Pokemon trainer cards, your basic nuts and bolts of your deck are printed either common or uncommon and are really easy to get hold of. So they're not the exciting cards. The land cards in Magic the Gathering aren't the exciting cards, arguably, but it just means that you can easily put together a deck that functions really well without having to fork out a lot of money. And then, if you want to upgrade your deck, if you want to buy specific cards, you're buying the exciting cards. You're buying the big face characters of the set. You're buying the cards that you really do want to look for.
Yeah. Okay. So going back to the question about is there any information on the cards that allows us to tell the rarity? Do all trading card games have that information on cards?
So as every game that I've seen will usually have next to the collector number a little letter, and there will be like a little C for common, a little U for uncommon, or whatever type of card they're using. The Japanese card games I absolutely love because they'll have rare, then they'll have special rare, and then they'll have the double S for the super special rare. And some of these games go up to 4 S's.
So the really easy to find ones are just rare.
Yeah, the really easy to find ones are rare.
Not rare at all.
There's a rare in every pack that's easy to find, but the super special limited edition things are 4S rare.
Yeah.
I think it could be that where the D23 stamp is, that's replaced with some kind of rarity.
The other
symbol.
thing that is in Magic the Gathering, when I buy older cards, they don't have that little letter on. It's based on a symbol on the card or something like that, or a colour, or...
So the very first Magic the Gathering sets didn't have any indication of whether they were rares or not. You just had to
work it out.
You worked it out.
Yeah. But then later on, there was an intermediary stage where it wasn't really easy to work out.
There was an intermediary stage where the set symbol is in a different colour depending on the type of card that it is.
How rare it was.
So it was, so if it was, black, solid black for the most common cards, and then a kind of hollow out version for the
So we could be
uncommons.
looking at that in Lorcana in terms of the symbols on the cards that represent the colour.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to, they're different symbols, they don't have to be, the red symbol doesn't have to be red, it could be different colours depending on the rarity of that card.
Oh, I suppose, I hadn't thought of that. That these are an anomaly. These are like a promo card, so they haven't got a rarity. That's something so Pokemon do that. So at the moment, Pokemon, where their promo cards have a little black star where the rarity would be. Because
they're so rare.
no, not because they're so rare. Because they're promo, as in these are the ones you can buy that card as a.
Isn't that true in Magic too? They have a P for promo.
They have a P for promo.
Instead of the letter representing the rarity. Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
So that's the iceberg, rarity iceberg.
The rarity iceberg. There was something else that I thought was quite interesting enough to discuss, and that was in the errata text. Kodok also looks at building better booster packs. So these are the little.
Can you say that again? That was quite a tongue twister.
No, I cannot. These are the little, the little envelopes that you buy your cards in, and this is something that a lot of card games have really worked on in the past few years. Magic the Gathering has changed the way they work, and a lot of the card games that are out there have been really looking at, okay, what's the opening experience like? Because they recognise that actually buying a pack of cards and opening it is part of the fun of it being a trading card game.
It's a huge part of the fun.
It's so much fun that the most popular Pokemon card game channels aren't card games, channels where they talk about the gameplay. They're channels where they literally open packs of cards, and
That's true of lots of products.
it's true of a lot of that's
a lot of hobbies.
Thank you, capitalism. Anyway, so when you open a pack of cards, I think it's important that there's some consistency, that there's going to be cards of certain rarities in there, and that they really explain well, okay, here's the possibilities that you might get, and here are the options that you might be able to open. And if there are secret cards, well, great, that's fine, but actually let us know that there are secret cards and how many there are and what the chances of opening those cards are, because that's part of the fun. I think that's really is part of the fun. So I'd like to see in Lorcana, we've already talked about the different art styles. I'd love to see different art styles from day one, that you could open a pack and it was just, the sketch art rather than it all coloured in and beautiful, or different foil treatments, different shinies, and different kinds of cards. I'd love to see that, because that will be the difference between me going, oh, I'd like to open one or two of these packs, and then I'll buy the actual individual cards on the secondary market that I need to build the decks that I want, or me going, okay, no, I'm going to buy 10 of these packs and just enjoy the opening experience.
Yeah, the opening experience is so fun. Simeon.
Yes.
I have a quiz for you.
Amazing.
I've turned the tables.
But I'm loving this, David. You're like, oh no, please don't build me a quiz. Quizzes are my love language, David.
Quiz is love language.
I love the fact that you've written a quiz for me. Tell me about the quiz.
There is no curse that could ever tear me away from you, Simeon. We're on the theme of curses where we're dedicating the episode to Maleficent, and it's nearly Halloween. So my quiz is called Satanic Panic. So as a child, there were lots of Disney movies that I wasn't allowed to watch because of this thing called Satanic Panic. So because they had a witch in, that was seen as, that you shouldn't be watching that. And I wouldn't necessarily bring this up in everyday life, but I know that Ryan Miller, the designer of Lorcana, also experienced Satanic Panic in his life. He wasn't. I think it's Dungeons and Dragons that he wasn't allowed to play. So.
I wasn't allowed to watch He-Man because Jesus is the master of the universe.
Well, there you go, Simon. There you go. So the quiz is called Satanic Panic, and it's based around movies that I wasn't allowed to watch as a child, or that I wouldn't have been allowed to watch if I was a child when they came out, because they've come out since I was a child.
Okay, so do I have to guess whether you were allowed to watch these or not?
No, they're all banned. They're all on the ban list.
They're all on the ban. You weren't allowed to watch any of these.
So,
David, I feel
they've all got witches in.
Okay.
If there's a movie with witches. So I'm going to give you the name of the witch. You need to give me the name of the movie or the TV series or whatever.
No! Oh my goodness!
I
wasn't allowed to watch any of these either as a kid.
We'll start with hopefully the easier ones.
Okay.
So the episode's dedicated to Maleficent. So let's start with that. Maleficent.
Is that the Sleeping Beauty?
Yes.
Okay. Amazing. I've got one right. Yes.
The Evil Queen.
The Evil Queen was, I think, is that Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs?
Yes.
The unnamed Evil Queen.
2 out of 2. Also known as the Wicked Queen.
Ding, ding, ding.
Okay. Evil Regina.
Sorry?
This is from a series, and it's quite a recent series. Evil Regina.
Quite a recent series. Let me think about series that might have witches in that are recent. And Disney?
I'm not sure, but it came up. So I got this from a list of Disney.
Oh, okay.
There's over 100 Disney witches. Did you know that?
Wow.
There's a lot for Lorcana. There's a huge amount.
That's more than princesses.
So I watched the series when it came out about 10 years ago.
Oh, hang on. You watched it when it came out 10 years ago?
About that.
Oh, okay. In that case, I've no idea. Sabrina?
Once Upon a Time.
I haven't seen that.
That's fair enough.
Is it good? Should I watch it?
I loved the first series, and I dropped off after the second series. I don't know if that means it's good or not, but the first series I loved. My favourite character was Rumpelstiltskin. So it's based in a American town, and then fairy tale characters turn up in the town.
Oh, okay. Sounds fun.
So it's kind of a breach between the world we live in and the world of fairy tales. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Queen Nerissa.
Queen Nerissa? Mm-hmm. Oh, my goodness. I don't think I've... So this is a witch who is also a queen. So I need to think about times when that is relevant. I don't think I can think of it. Let's go. Hang on. Let's guess.
A movie from this century.
A movie from this. Is it The Princess and the Frog?
No.
Oh, okay. Go for it.
Enchanted.
I have seen that. Oh my goodness, that's disappointing.
I'll forgive you because I thought it was Maleficent and Enchanted as well. I thought they were the same character.
Okay. No.
You might know this one, the Sanderson sisters.
The Sanderson sisters. Is that the? What's it called? Oh my goodness. The witches of such and such place. I can't remember.
Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus.
I'm feeling so bad because
my goodness.
Such a hard quiz. Okay, this is the hardest one of all. I just love this name.
Okay.
I've never heard of this. I'd heard of the series, but I wouldn't have associated this character with the series. And I probably would have been allowed to watch this series. The witch is called Magica de Spell.
That is an amazing name. Is that from Princess Sophia the First?
No, it's from DuckTales.
Oh, DuckTales! That is a DuckTales. That's a very DuckTales name, isn't it? That's amazing. Yeah. Was that all of them?
That's my quiz.
Oh, no, I only got 2 right.
I know.
Oh, never mind. But thank you.
Listeners, send in quizzes for us because... we need quizzes.
Yeah, I mean...
you're clearly better at doing it than me. Because
really? What?
The listeners are better at creating quizzes than I am.
Oh,
because
okay.
I got more right. Like, it's not really fair to give you quizzes, and it's like...
No, I love that kind of thing because you know what? There will be some listeners that are listening of our tens of fans. Someone will be screaming at their smart device, going, "It's this movie! How do you not know that? Yeah. Call yourselves a Disney podcast."
I just want to say, Simon, you're a disgrace to the forces of evil.
That's a quote, isn't it?
Yes.
What's that from?
Maleficent said it in one of her movies.
Oh, okay. Well, to be honest, yes. No, I am chaotic neutral aligned.
I think we've had enough of this nonsense. So that was just a quote.
Brilliant. Great. Well, that's brilliant. Thank you very much for listening. If you want to get in touch with us, how can people do that, David?
On Twitter.
Yes.
On the YouTube comments. On email, lorcanapodcast@gmail.com.
That's right. Please do send in comments or quizzes. That would also be brilliant. Or if you have any questions, we'd love to answer them. Next time, in a couple of weeks, we'll be talking about what to do while we wait. This is a really long time until next autumn. So we're going to try and get Beck back on. I think her diary is an hour's a line, and hopefully she'll be here talking about things we can do that are kind of Disney themed, kind of trading card game themed, and a lot of fun.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Amazing. Any last words?
For the first time in 16 years, I shall sleep well.
Right, thanks everyone. Bye.